everybody, and welcome to the name we haven't decided yet. It might be decided when we post this. So whatever it is, look at the title.
There it is.
I'm just going to say the 502 Gamecast.
There it is.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's like our name, but
natural.
With cast.
With cast in it. This is our first episode of our podcast. We are 502 Game. My name is Zach. I got here.
My name's David. If you've seen any of our gameplay, you know I'm awesome at games, except for most of them.
Fair enough.
The rest of them I'm really bad at.
Fair enough. But just a little into what we're doing and why we're doing it. We've done Let's Play so far. That's it. And from the very beginning, we wanted to do two different things besides Let's Plays. I wanted to do a podcast. David wanted to do top 10 videos. So we're going to start rolling those out since we feel like we're at a point in our channel to where we need more variety and we want more out of it. So like we love doing our Let's Plays and we're going to continue to do them because that's what the channel is about. But we're excited to move on and do these things. So we don't have a schedule for this yet. Hopefully we're going to get one out every so often, and we don't have like a time frame either. So like some of them might be half an hour long, some might be an hour long, who knows. We've literally never spoken to a mic for this long of a period about a certain topic. So roll with us. We hope it's going to be good.
And we'll get a schedule.
Yeah.
We've
kind
of worked things out, and we're gonna get a schedule for the Let's Plays, the top 10s, and the podcast.
Yep.
Have a certain length and a certain day it's going to come out, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So once we get into rotation, we'll give you more details.
A lot of it is us just learning things. Like, for instance, we don't know when this podcast is going to come out because we want to do a few upgrades to the channel. Like, we want a new introduction video to the channel.
Look at that introduction video you just watched.
We wanted to have a new introduction video to the podcast, like just for the podcast. So stuff like that, and like our intros to video, like our gameplay videos or Let's Plays, we want to change that too. So as we're learning through that, getting new stuff for that, we'll get better and better at it.
We know a lot about games, but our editing and video and all
very
limited.
Very minimum. We're self-taught, barely. So we're working on it. But welcome to the first cast, our first podcast. And today, I think we mentioned it in a video at one point.
So on Mega Man X's playthrough, X2.
Mega X2. We are going to talk about just our video game history, mine and David's, and what our favorite games are, why they're our favorite games, and what shaped us into the type of video game players we are today. So instead of just going back and forth being like, hey, yo,
this is mine.
I like Mario.
I like Zelda.
All right, next topic. We literally have not talked about this at all. We showed up with a list of games like we liked, and we're like, all right, let's do this. So what I think is going to work best is if we can talk about every game we say. Like, I'll say, like, this is a game that's important to me, and then we can talk about it. But I'm going to do mine, and then David's going to do his.
Okay.
So that sounds
just
good to me.
all at once.
Yeah, and, like, just, you can do it however you want. But I think I know how I'm going to do mine. So
okay.
Basically, how I'm going to start out is when I was very young, I was always considered player 3. Most people are always like, man, I was player 2 growing up. My older brother, I was player 3 because David always took player 1. Tyler would take player 2, and I was player 3.
Come to your house and steal it.
A lot of the times I was player 4 too. So I was back of the bus. And a lot of that turned me into the gamer I am today because I really didn't play a whole lot of games. I watched a whole lot of games. I watched David and Tyler play a whole lot of games, and I was just kind of in the background. But I still love doing it.
For a long time, I didn't think you even liked games.
Really?
I didn't think you liked playing. I thought you just liked watching because you never said, let me play.
Right.
You just kind of sat there and watched me and Tyler play.
I knew my place. But that turned into, I still like watching games. Like, I love Let's Plays and stuff like that, especially like older games. Like, when Tyler introduced me to the Game Grumps, I fell in love with them because they're hilarious and they play games that I like, and that's cool to me. So that did shape me into the gamer I am today a little bit. But where I'm going with this is the first game that really got me introduced into playing games with you guys was Smash Bros. For the GameCube.
Yeah.
and that game is huge in my life. And that's big coming from me specifically because I don't really like fighting games.
Yeah. You always talk about how you don't like fighting games.
Exactly.
And we've probably played that together more than any other game. Together, just us.
Either that or Overwatch, but probably that. I don't remember it as well because when we played that, I was,
young.
4?
I was really young. You were older than that. But you probably weren't much. You were probably 6
I don't think
or 7.
I was in school, maybe.
No, you were in school.
I was in school?
You were about 6
Okay.
or 7.
Because the history is David and Kristen would come home with us after we went to school for a long time because their parents weren't home yet. So they would come over to our house and we'd play GameCube until they came to get them. Every single day for 5 days a week.
And that's the only game we could all play.
Yeah.
So we played it a lot.
5 or more days a week. A lot of times we would hang out on Saturday too. So that game really, really got me started into like playing and really liking games. That game is huge in my life. It has always been on my top 10 list, and I really don't think it'll ever change.
Yeah.
Going back,
there's games like that. Once you play it enough times, even if something's
solidified.
better, it's there.
It's
already there.
More at that point, just what is that word? Nostalgia than anything. And that game is great. I still think it's the best Smash.
I do
Personally,
too. I do too.
4 is really good.
4 is good.
4 is insanely good.
I always take into consideration
The time period. Yeah.
And it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the jump from 64 to that.
Yeah.
And
then
it's
it was better than
polygons that
Brawl.
weren't very fun or looked terrible, and it wasn't smooth at all.
Yeah.
To extremely fun and smooth and looked great. And there's not a whole lot of graphical changes between the second and third one.
No. Yeah. That's what I was saying. Like, it's a big to see the jump from the first to the second, but what speaks even louder is the second to the third. Like, just playing it, like, you just know the one that's older is better. Yeah. And that happens sometimes.
The only thing you said wrong is it's not a fighting game.
It is a
still
fighting
say
game.
It's a party game. But
it's a party fighting game.
I'll give you that.
It's the closest thing I like to a fighting game. So
it's your version of the fighting game.
That game is huge to me. That really got me started. And there were other games we played too. Like, I remember playing Animal Crossing for the GameCube a ton. A few 64 games, but those aren't like, they don't mean as much to me near as Smash Brothers. Yeah. So that was my first one that really got me started. And then another one that was really huge in my childhood was Pokemon Yellow. Yeah. That was my first game.
As was everybody that grew up in the 90s or early 2000s.
That was the first game I ever beat by myself. And I loved it because I've talked about it. My background, I really love animals, and that's what it was to me. It's like I owned a ton of cool-ass animals, you know? And I love Pokemon Yellow. I played the crap out of it. I caught all 151 because my friends traded back and forth on the Game Boy Advance SP. That was just awesome. I still own my original copy of Pokemon Yellow and my original Game Boy.
I couldn't tell you how many copies of that I had because I would play through it and then sell it and play through it and sell it.
It's so good, and God, I just love that
You keep
game.
on to things though.
Oh,
on
yeah.
to things. You still have your Game Boy that has, ain't it Spider-Man?
Yeah, Spider-Man all
a
over
Spider-Man cover.
Yep. And on top of that, after I played that, I skipped Generation 2 and I played Pokemon Ruby. That was my next really big... Those were the single-player games I played, because I never played single-player games.
Yeah.
That was all... I always watch you guys do it. And I enjoyed that. Like, I would watch Tyler,
And to this day, Tyler plays more single-player games, and you still don't really.
Not
Most
a
of the
whole
times
lot.
you play with other people.
Yeah, for the most part. And that's kind of where I was brought up, because when I played with other people, and the social aspect of gaming is huge for me. And it always has been, it always will be. And
not to skip into your list, but one of my things I wrote down was online play changed everything for me. Mm-hmm. Video games was, for me, when I was a kid, was I'm done playing outside with my friends. Now I'm going to sit in here by myself and just hang out and play this game.
Yeah.
And to me, it blew my mind when you could play with other people.
Right.
But I love that they did online. I love the social aspect, but that's weird that you grew up with that. And
yeah.
To you, it is a social thing. And to me, sometimes it's still weird that, like, I get on my PlayStation, and a lot of times what other people are playing and who's on will affect what I'm playing.
Right.
And that's weird to me, because it used to be just that was my alone time, and now it's almost one of my biggest social things is getting on and playing games with people.
Yeah, because that's how you connect with a whole lot of people from high school and like your old friends is you just play games still. Like we have friends in North Carolina and the only time we see them all year is for a 1 week period. So we just play games with them and that's how we keep up. It's like we never it's like we see each other every day pretty much.
And that's how my best friend is Kevin Kinnaman. And block out that name. The last name. I don't know why I said Kinnaman. But anyways, reverse. But anyways, we used to see each other all the time, but now we see each other maybe once a year. But when we do, it's like we had seen each other all the time because of that.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean.
That's super important. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But after those 2 games, I really didn't play anything for a long time. Like, the game that got me into gaming, like, I can remember a long period. Like, I had my DS and everything, but I didn't have a console to myself, and it still wasn't my own console, until the Xbox 360 and Modern Warfare 2 changed my life. To this day, I've never played a game as much as I played that game, and I still love it. It's still my favorite shooter of all time. It is what made me fall in love with shooters, and it's what turned me into a gamer. Like, I went from I play games to have fun to, like, I was getting home and playing games. And I was getting good, I was grinding, and I was going to be, like, one of the best people that people knew at that game. And, God, that game blew my mind. Like, the social aspect wasn't there at first because I was still young when that game came out. What was it? 2000...
Early 2000s.
Not
mid
like early. It was like 2007 or something, 2008.
Yeah, maybe.
Something like that.
I think it's earlier.
I was like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Either way. And not a whole people my age had Xboxes. And like we got one for Christmas. We got that game and I played the crap out of it. And finally my friends got it and it turned into like us like being the best, getting on there. Who could get a nuke first? Like play private matches, do quick scopes, all that stuff. And like that's the only game I've bought multiple times for the same console. And I still, to this day, it's my favorite shooter of all time. I can't wait till they remaster it. And that's a lot coming from me because I don't like a whole lot of Call of Duties. I like that one a lot. I like Black Ops 2. And that's probably about it.
Yeah.
Like, because especially the newer ones are just not good. But that one was just so perfect on the multiplayer.
Yeah. I was way off. 2009.
2009?
Almost 2010.
So I was 11.
Made it in. So, yeah, I remember I would come over any time of the day, and that's what you were doing.
I wasn't talking to people.
Was playing Call of Duty.
I would wake up.
Because you used to just play basketball all the time.
Yep.
All the time. And it was getting to the point where I'd come over and me and Tyler would go out and play basketball. We were the ones that always played games.
Yeah.
And you would just sit in there and you were locked in.
Yeah, I would wake up in the summer and go to bed playing it all day. I would eat while I played. It was just... Looking back, my mom should have stopped me. Because I was addicted. And I gained weight because of it. A lot of it at that time. Do you remember that? I was a little chubby.
Gaining weight.
But... that game was so perfect. It's still my favorite shooter to this day, and there's been a lot of good shooters since then that I liked, but that is the game that really changed my eyes on gaming and was like, this is the best hobby. And it still is. Like you said, I love basketball, and I love playing it, I love watching it. That was a lot of my childhood and high school years. But... like gaming that's what turned it into like I'll play for fun to like I'm gonna play every day because it's like a different world. And like that's really where my skill came out too because I wasn't good at Smash Brothers at all.
Of course you were like 7,
right? But like that's when like I was good at games. That's when I was like, and that's a good point too is like games are more fun when you're good at them.
Oh yeah,
like for sure because like with Fortnite being big right now, Tyler likes it. But he doesn't like it near as much as me and Jesse because he's just not as good. So he can't enjoy that as much. But like when I got good at Modern Warfare 2, I was like, this is awesome. I'm destroying everybody.
Yeah. So that's with really anything in life, though.
Yeah.
Things are funner when you're better at them.
Definitely. After that happened, Modern Warfare, I played shooters for a while. That was really all I played until my Xbox broke. Then I bought a new one when another game came out. I don't even remember what, but I finally bought a new one, And then it kind of died off. I didn't play games for like a while. I was really focused on basketball because I was getting pretty good. And throughout high school, that's really what I did. I didn't play as many games until I had an injury and I couldn't play basketball anymore. And during that injury is really when I started watching the Game Grumps. And they have really taken like gaming to me and like turned me into a single player gamer, because I always knew David liked a lot of retro games because he grew up with them and everything, stuff like that. But watching them, I was like, these games look so fun. So like I literally told David one day, I was like, I'm gonna start playing other games. The first thing I ever watched him play was Zelda, the original Zelda, and after that I was like, I'm gonna start playing games. I played 8 Zeldas that month, beat them all. Like, and I was like, this is awesome. And of those 8 Zeldas I beat, 2 of them that stood out to me, the first single players I really ever got into was the Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance, which is
Probably
really
shocked
weird.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Of all of them.
If you haven't played that, I think it's the most underrated Zelda in the entire series. I know you think it's Zelda 2.
I haven't played through the Minish Cap, though, to be fair.
The Minish Cap is...
I think that Zelda 2, without going way off of Minish Cap...
Go for it.
...is just... I don't think it's a great game. I just think that everybody hates it.
Because
it's not like the rest of the Zeldas.
Right.
But just because it's not exactly the same doesn't mean it's not good. It's stupid and it's cryptic, and I get that, and you have to look up a walkthrough to get through it.
Right.
You just have to your first time. But if you get past that, it's fun.
Yeah.
The gameplay is good. Really, for what the NES could do, it pushed it pretty much as far as it could for that year of the NES anyway.
Yeah, and that's a lot about games too. It's like, it might be one of your favorite games of all time, but people may not like it. It could be one of your favorites, and you could admit it's not a great game. It's just what speaks to you. It's what you like, and just certain things about it. To me, Minish Cap was like a bridge between newer Zeldas and older ones that are great. I think it had a lot of cooler new aspects that I really liked. I liked the art and the story of it, but it reminded me of Link to the Past a lot, and that's why I think you're going to love it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make David play it on this channel.
Maybe we can do that as one of our next series.
I hope so, because it literally surprised me how good it was. And I can't say enough good things about that game.
I played the first dungeon and thought, this is really good.
Yep.
And then I had so many... That's when we first started the channel.
Yeah.
Is when I was playing that. And when we first started, we were too nervous to do Let's Plays. Yeah. I don't know why, but we were both like, we want to do it, but I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Well, let's just do top 10s, because then we can script it all out. That's a lot of editing for somebody that has no idea how to edit. So we skipped all that, but the point of all that is, because we started to do the top 10s, we actually played some games to make the list.
A lot of games.
And then we just didn't make the list yet, which we're going to start doing. But I dropped Minish Cap because I started playing games for that list. But the one dungeon I did was... Awesome. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. And we're still going to do those top 10s, but what he was saying is, like, we didn't want to make a top 10 and not play the game. So all 3 of us, like, if we were doing a top 10 Zeldas, we would make our general list of what we thought originally. We would argue it out, see what we thought, like change a few things, and then if we hadn't played one, like say David's never played Skyward Sword, like we're gonna play it, because we don't want to make a list about something we don't know.
Yeah,
we want to be authentic about it.
We don't want to make somebody else's list.
Exactly. We want to make our own list that we think is like, we want it to be different, but we don't want it to be different to the point just to be different. We want it to be accurate, but that's why we started playing those games, and that's when I played Minish Cap, and I was like, wow, this game's awesome. Like, I enjoyed it a lot. It's not a long game, but it's a very fun game, and I think it deserves more recognition. The next game after that I played in that Zelda month was, well, not the next one,
Zelda month?
But my favorite one besides that, and my favorite Zelda to this day that everyone's going to crucify me over.
Probably so.
Is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the Nintendo Wii.
Half the people just turn this off.
Let me defend myself. The reason I like certain games. Like, for instance, I think RPGs are some of the best games of all time because the story, the gameplay, the mechanics of it, all that going together is amazing. Like, whoever makes those games puts time into them. But I can't play them because it doesn't keep my attention. I have ADD. So I really need something to hold onto my attention. And I have dyslexia, so I can't read all that crap they put on the screen.
Yeah.
So the reason I like certain single-player games is because it can capture me so well. And it has gameplay in it that I like. So, like, the Skyward Sword, to me, it has the best story of any Zelda game. And it held on to my attention the entire time. Because it's the origin of where Zelda came from.
Yeah.
And I thought that was awesome. I didn't have any problems with the controls. And I liked the gameplay. I thought it was pretty fun. And I liked the game overall. But most of that game to me was the story. And I thought it was awesome and beautiful. And I can't wait until they remaster that too. Because if they put regular controls on that, I think people's opinion on it changed really quickly.
Yeah. I actually want to try that because you say that I'm about story.
Yeah.
And people will probably crucify me too. If you've watched other of our Let's Plays, you already know this. But I think that Ocarina of Time is the most overrated game ever. I think it's a good game, but I think it's the most overrated ever. Because, to me, Zelda is what the first Zelda is. And I'm not trying to be old school, but you're dropped out, adventure, go find things.
Right.
And then I like a story. So like Skyward Sword, I would like to know what happened to Zelda, how it all came. To me, that was my problem with Legend of Zelda is, you're a boy in the forest, hey, go to this tree. Hey, go to this. There's nothing to it. It was, hey, go to this mountain.
Yeah.
Now go over here. And it just held your hand and pointed you. And I've seen you play a little bit of it, and I've watched a little bit of it, and that's another one I'd like to eventually play on here.
And to the point of, like, hand-holding, people argue that it holds your hand, but that's just, like, the Wii was so different, they had to do a little bit of different things. So, like, yes, she reminds you, like, hey, your batteries are getting low. That's annoying. Just keep fresh batteries in.
That's your fault.
That is completely your fault. But she doesn't say, like, all right, now turn left, like, stuff like that. I actually like that character a lot, but that's just me. It is not as open world as a lot of Zelda games. It's pretty straightforward for the most part, but in that world there's so much you can do and see that I think that it makes up for it. But I'm not saying it's open world at all. If you hear a dog, I'm sorry. But yeah, so I really like that game, but it's the story that did it for me, and I will stand by it to the day I die. I think that game's beautiful and great. But that started me. After all that Zelda stuff, I was like, there's so many games that I have not played that I need to play. And that led me to a lot of things, and a lot of coming to David because he knows so much about it. I was like, dude, I want to play old games, and he gave me lists of games to play. And I was like, all right, let's start. So that's when David introduced me to, it turned me into Mega Man X. And I actually came over here and played Mega Man X with him. I was like, let me try it out. And he walked me, he didn't hold my hand through it, but he was like, this is how you play. Let's see what's going on. And, like, I got through it, and I remember I got, I think, 6 Mavericks down, and I had to go home. And I went home and I beat it. Because I loved it that much. And I texted David the next day. I was like, I hate Bo Spider. He's the worst boss in the game.
And then 2 days later, you're like, he wasn't that bad. I hate Sigma.
Yeah. So, that was so weird to me because, like, I had never played games like that. Like, Mega Man X was, like, a triumph in my life to beat. And I'm not bad at it either.
First of all, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
For putting that in your life.
That game is beautiful. I love it.
You deserved it.
And that's why I always think, like, I think I was born in the right period of games and the wrong at the same time. Because, like, the games I play the most and the games I love are shooters. Like I said, Modern Warfare 2, a game I'm about to talk about in a minute, Fortnite coming out. I love that game. I play it a lot. I think the competition of it's awesome, like, stuff like that. But at the same time, if I'm not playing a shooter, I want to be playing an old game.
Yeah.
Just because they're so beautiful, the stories are great, the gameplay's fun, and it's challenging. It keeps my attention, stuff like that. So that's really when my retro games started kicking off. I played Mega Man X. I played the first 3 of them. And then the next game on the list is maybe the most important. I started Super Metroid on my 3DS. 3DS was huge for me in games because you can download so many old ones and play them.
Yeah.
I played the Super Metroid on the 3DS, and I fell in love with that game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's probably a top 3 of my favorite games, and I fell in love with Metroid at that point. Before that, I never played a Metroid game. I had Metroid Prime when I was little. I still have it, and I never played it. I had other Metroid games I never played, which is weird too, because Samus was always my favorite in Smash Brothers. I always loved her, had no idea what her games were like. So I finally played Super Metroid, and that's
a huge favorite.
My favorite retro game of all time to this day. It's one of my favorite series of all time after that. It's just beautiful, and I know you love it too.
Oh yeah, the only thing we talked about before starting this was here's what we're going to talk about, our favorite games and why, and what molded us into why we love games, and what games were on our list. We just showed each other our list, and the only ones that matched up, I believe, were Mega Man X and Super Metroid. There may be one more,
but I haven't said it.
But he hasn't said it, so we'll mention that when it gets there. But that was you just said your favorite retro game, and you can look at my list right there. It's the third one I put on there. It awesome. Immediately comes to mind every time I think about great games or why I love games. It immediately comes to mind.
And without being over nostalgic or just my love for that game getting away, I think it is one of the most perfect games of all time. Perfect. Nothing's wrong with it. It's great. The music, the gameplay, the atmosphere, it's so different. The Castlevania type games I love, Metroidvania. I love those. So I just think it's literally perfect, and I think it's one of the top 3 games of all time.
I think it's not arguable, in my opinion. It's not in my top 5 favorite. Very, very close. It's right at that top 5. But I don't think it's arguable that it's a top 3 or 4 game ever.
Yeah.
It's that good.
It's perfect. If you haven't played that game, out of all the ones I've said so far, you need to play that.
You can't pick anything out that's bad about it. The gameplay's great. The controls are great. The atmosphere's great. The music's great. The graphics for the time were great. I mean, they still hold up today.
Still great. That game's awesome.
There's so many. It's got difficult enough gameplay that it brings you back, but not so easy that you walk through it.
Yep.
It has all kinds of secrets. Everything you want, it's got it.
The not leveling system, but the progression you get. You start that game and you feel so weak, and by the end you're like, I will kill anything. You're trying to avoid enemies at points, and at the end of the game you're like, come here, fucker, I'm gonna kill you. Pretty much. Great. I love that game. That is the one out of all the ones I've said so far that you need to play. No matter what you like, you'll love it. Other than that, there's 3 other games I haven't mentioned. I think I'll just say one of them. David had a whole ton of games, and right before we started doing this, he was like, if you ever want to play an old game, come over. And I was like, I want to play Contra. And I came over and I fell in love with Contra. It's not that it's a great game.
Which blows me away. I don't know why, but everything that you've played gave me no inkling that you were going to like that.
I know.
And you're like, this is awesome. I thought you were being
sarcastic?
Yeah, sarcastic, thanks for trying to show me something. You know what I mean? And then, the next time you were over, you're like, let's play Contra.
I love that game. I think it's really challenging. It's fun. You can sit down, play through it all. It's an awesome game. It's just fun. It's a good time. It's not a great game. It's not a perfect game whatsoever, but if you just want to have fun for a minute, play Contra.
Especially back then.
Oh, yeah.
Where you didn't have games where you played with your friends. And you could sit down and play that over and over and over again.
That was fun. The next game on my list is one from my childhood. I probably should have mentioned it earlier, but I still love it to this day. And I don't know when this is going to come out, but if it's probably going to come out later than this. We're probably playing it right now, is Sonic Adventure 2. I love Sonic because I grew up on his cartoons.
I'm sorry. That's all I have.
I grew up on his cartoons, and I was young when they came out. I loved them. My mom told me Steve Irwin died while I was watching it. I cried for hours. The only thing that made me feel better was Sonic on the TV. I love him to death, and that game is actually a good Sonic game for once. And I really like it. I really care about it, and that's one of the games that first games I beat when I was young is Sonic Adventure 2. And I know you don't like Sonic that much, but even you like that one. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the only Sonic game that's worth playing. It really is. But that's false. Sonic 2 is okay. Yeah. But the only one that's an enjoyable time is Sonic Adventure 2. Plus, you can build those chows up. I used to love doing that.
That was awesome. We would make them, like the angel ones. We made one named Moses. We'd take them down to hell and name them like Beelzebub.
I forgot you could make them good or bad.
Yeah.
I just remember you could level them up and make them stronger.
That's what we should do in our Sonic. Like that should
not
be
even play the game.
No, it should be like not one-offs, but like we should release episodes like we're just doing Chow today.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. Last game I'm going to mention, just because it was the last game that was really big in my life, was the best shooter since Modern Warfare 2 and my second favorite shooter of all time. And it really connected us more because we used to play online games like Halo 3 and stuff like that, but we hadn't played an online game together in a long time. Long time.
And this is the game that we both had on our list.
Yes.
That we talked about a minute ago.
Is in 2016, Overwatch came out by Blizzard. Great company. Has a lot of good games. We also both love StarCraft 2. But Overwatch came out, and it literally changed shooters for me. It's so much different than most shooters. And I remember the first day, Tyler's like, we should go buy this. I was like, all right. And I got it home. I played like 3 matches. I was like, this game sucks. And I didn't like it at all. And I kept playing it, and by the end of the night, I was like, this is the best game I have. And I literally, we put so many hours into that game, it's embarrassing. But I love it.
I'm up to 585, I think.
I was in the 400s when I stopped.
I still haven't stopped. You need to jump back on that bandwagon.
I should. It's
not
game.
As bad as you remember.
Really?
Because it was so good at the beginning that we kind of got worn out of it and tired of the changes. Because we liked just the vanilla version was awesome. Yeah. And they kept trying to change it for the pros and change it for this. PC players. And it changed it so much that it wasn't the same game.
Yeah.
But now if you get back on, I bet you would enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because it still isn't the same game, but once you spend enough time away from it, you realize it's still a really good game.
What made it worse for us is because we played for fun, so we just played regular quick play, and then they introduced competitive mode.
No, that's what ruined it for us.
And we got so mad at people because your teammates are always bad, they would lose the game for you, and that's when you got toxic and mad, and that's what killed it for me.
Yeah. A big thing for me is when you play with Zenyatta, you shouldn't have 3 golds and 2 silvers minimum every match. Yeah. You just shouldn't. Ever.
Definitely not. But yeah, that game was brilliant. I got pretty good at that game too.
Oh, you were way better than I was.
And I played on PlayStation.
Masters?
Yeah, I was in Masters when I quit. That's a terrible place to quit. I got close to Grandmaster so many times, and then my teammates would just like one-trick May. And I'd just be like, oh my god. But love that game. I still do. I have it on PC now, and I'm just not near as good, so I haven't really got into it, but I'd like to play it on PlayStation again. I don't play on PlayStation enough, so that's the end of my list. There were a lot of games on there that I didn't say. It wasn't a long list. It was just...
I know there's one on there you didn't say, because I know it's your favorite game ever. Or do you want to save that till after I'm done?
I didn't even think about it.
You can save that till you're done, and I'll use my favorite game as my last one.
And then we'll say them together.
Favorites.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
That's crazy. I was like... But that's the end of my list. That's a lot of the games that... I mean, obviously there's a lot of them there that I loved and changed what I thought about a lot of games. David's going to say a few of them, so it's his turn.
All right. Yours was a lot more planned out than mine.
I'm sorry.
So this may be bad. You may want to just turn off now, possibly.
Which is funny because your list has stuff about the games, but mine is just the games. But I thought about what I was going to say for all day.
Well,
so.
I should have thought more about it. I did this on lunch, but I was also doing some other things on lunch, and I should have just put all this on lunch, and I should have thought about it before. But I wasn't 100% sure we were going to do the podcast. I knew we were going to do it, but I didn't know we were going to do this episode until earlier today. Yeah. So then I was like, I got to start coming up with something.
That's okay. Go for it.
The first game, I don't want to just piggyback off of what you've already said, but the first game that I realized this is what I want to do all the time. I love playing basketball, like you said, and football, and I love hanging out with my friends, but I know that I'm going to play games the rest of my life, was Mega Man X.
Yep.
I still play it today. I've played it every year since I was 5 years old, at least once. And I guarantee I've beat it over 100 times. I don't know what made me want it, because I liked Mega Man, but it wasn't like an obsession.
All right.
And then I still remember going into Blockbuster, and I saw, most of you don't even know what that is, but I go into Blockbuster, and it had the picture on the front of the cartridge. It's him underwater,
right,
with all his armor, and there's the octopus in the background, Launch Octopus.
Yep.
I was like, that's Mega Man, but awesome, and I have to have it. And I never asked my parents for games.
Yeah.
I asked them for other things, toys, but I never asked them for video games. And I was like, I have to have this.
Yeah.
I don't remember getting it, but I remember that I beat it over and over and over and over, to the point where my dad had never played it, but he knew the order in which you needed to beat the bosses and where all the upgrades were. And I loved that game. It's, to me, the most perfect gameplay there is. It's not the perfect game. It's not even my favorite game. It's my second favorite game ever. But just the gameplay is so pure and so good.
That is one of the most fun games to pick up and play.
Yeah. And that's maybe my favorite thing about it, is you can play it in an hour.
Yeah.
And it's always fun to pick up and play. No matter what kind of mood you're in, you can play that real quick.
Yeah.
And have fun. I also put on there X, 2, and 3. They're not as good as 1, but they're both really solid games. Mm-hmm. The second one kind of goes down. I think the polish and the gameplay quality is still there. The levels aren't as memorable. The bosses aren't as memorable. And the ending is not near as memorable.
We just finished it.
We did. Go watch it.
38 minutes ago.
It just... You felt like you were on a journey in the first one. At the end, you accomplished.
Yeah.
You
everything.
beat Sigma. You beat everything that needed to be beaten. It was an epic journey. Your best friend Zero died. You took down the guy that killed him. You killed the main boss. He was a huge boss too. He took up the entire screen.
Yeah.
Then you fight you fight Sigma in X2, and he's a hologram.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it's really over until it's saying it's over.
Right.
X3, I think, took a step up and down. The bosses were better. Mm-hmm. The levels were more memorable, but the gameplay wasn't quite as polished. It was more blocky. It didn't feel as tight and smooth. Yeah. But anyways, I don't want to go too far into those two, because it's just a wrap-up of Mega Man.
Right.
And I guess, for sake of what your list was, I'll just jump into the two you've already said. Super Metroid was so... It's the first game that I felt like I was in the game.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard for you to understand, probably, because you're used to 3D and actually being in the game. Right. You know what I mean? But you land on this planet and you're all alone. And I don't think to this day there's a game that's as good at its atmosphere.
Oh, yeah. I don't think so either.
You immediately are lost in this world for the entire game. And it's just pure and perfect. And, it was the first time, like I said, that I felt like I was Samus. I was the person inside the suit. Overwatch was the other one that we both agreed on. It was the first time I had fun with a shooter. You liked Call of Duty. I tried it, and it was okay. But I just like the strategy involved with 6 different characters. Some heal, some block, some take the damage, some produce the damage. And I just love all the different roles you can play. It would be higher on my list of all time. It would probably be top 10 ever if it wasn't for the community.
Yeah.
That's the only game where the community completely burnt me out. So now on to more of my list. I guess that's still my list.
Yeah,
but one that Zach just is not going to agree at all. But Resident Evil. The scariest game back then was probably Mortal Kombat. And it had little shots of blood every once in a while when you hit somebody in the neck.
Is this the original?
The original.
Oh, okay.
Now today the original is terrible, but I'm going to get to that. The original was so cheesy, but when it wasn't cheesy, it was just scary. It was perfect horror. The camera angles, you never knew it was around the corner.
Right.
And it's hard to tell you how scary it was back then as a kid. Because now the graphics, you look at it and you're like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
But back then, there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
And it was so cool because I've always liked horror movies and scary things. And it was so good to finally be able to play a game that meshed with that. And to me, it's the only series ever that's really done it well consistently until the last couple installments. 5 and 6 were not great.
Yeah.
But you said the first one. That was what I was saying. It is about the first one, but now it's more of the remake. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So they reskinned the first game, and it's still cheesy, but it's still scary to this day. Like, if you've never played it, you got to go out and play it if you're into horror. It's legitimate scary to this day. Also, Resident Evil 4 is very good.
That's what I thought you were going to talk about.
It's extremely good. It got me into third-person shooters, too. It really revolutionized third-person shooter.
It did.
That wasn't a thing until it was. But it wasn't a thing that people did well or liked to do until that.
Yeah. That's a game I'd watch you play a lot growing up.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
What's crazy is, and you thought it was scary.
Oh, it was terrifying.
And that's the least scary out of the series by far.
Really?
By far the least scary.
I'm also a pansy.
That's true. The one negative to Resident Evil 4 is that was the pivot point from where it went from about horror and survival and making sure you have enough bullets to kill the next thing that was going to come at you to I'm a complete and total badass and I can kill everything.
Yeah.
You had shotguns and assault rifles and snipers and all that. In the original, you had later on in the game you get like a machine gun with 60 bullets and that's it. But most of the game you'd be running around with a shotgun with 12 bullets and a handgun with like 10 bullets, and that was it. But still, that whole series is great outside of 6. I actually like 5. Most people don't, but Final Fantasy 6 and 7. And this is where it goes really into my alley. I love RPGs, and you were talking about you just don't like them because you have to do the constant reading and with the dyslexia, and I completely understand that. But that's what I love about RPGs is just the story, and you're in control. It's almost like you're playing a movie.
Yeah.
And the stories in those are just so good. And here's some I just pulled up on my phone. When Final Fantasy VI came out, this is a story where you are a girl that's been experimented on. You find this random guy that's helping you out. And slowly you pick up more members and more members. And there's an evil empire. And this evil empire is basically wanting to rule the entire world. And you slowly build up all these pieces to try and take them down. And there's friendship. And there's 16 different characters. They each have an hour, 2 hour long backstory to why they're here, what they're doing. Here's some other games that came out that year that were big. Doom 2, Donkey Kong Country, Earthworm Jim, Sonic 3, King's Quest, Heretic, Star Wars TIE Fighter, System Shock, Master of Magic. What I'm getting at is
nothing had a story.
Yes. It was so far ahead of its time, it's unreal.
Yeah.
And it's the first game that ever made me feel emotion. Like I just said, think of those games. Earthworm Jim came out that year, and it was one of the biggest games. It's a game where you're a worm inside of a suit. And you just run around and kill. There's a cat that you fight and a blob of snot. It's actually bosses in that game. In this game, it got so in depth. You got to remember, this is 1994. It came out. Mm-hmm. There's a part where the evil empire ends up winning. The biggest twist in a game up to that point, probably. The bad guy wins. He literally destroys the world. He kills everybody on the planet outside of about 5% of the population. Your entire crew gets separated, and it goes back to one of the main girls. She's on an island, and the only other person there is her adopted father. And there's 2 outcomes to it. One outcome, you never see the story, and it doesn't make a big deal. But if you can't find fish, there's 2 fish, and you don't know, one of them's fast and one of them's slow. If you feed him, he's dying, and you're trying to keep him alive. If you feed him the slow fish, you catch the slow fish and give it to him, those fish are actually sick from poison, and it will kill him. And she actually goes up to the top of the mountain. If you accidentally kill him, she goes to the top of the mountain and talks about how she's lost everything and her friends and this and that, and now her adopted dad. And she jumps off the top of off the mountain and tries to kill herself and washes back to shore. And that was the first time that I was like, this is art. It's not just a video game that you're running through like Mega Man X, poo-poo, killing everything.
Yeah.
It's a legit, could be a movie type deal. And it's the first time that I started feeling things And that's when I really fell in love with the art style, the art side of games.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII had not the exact same thing, but the exact kind of impact. It was same story. It's a steampunk setting, and there's the evil company that's ruling the world. But the big twist in that one, it's kind of the same thing. The entire game, you're 24 hours in, and the main love interest, second main character, love interest of the main character, is sitting there in this temple, and you walk in, and the boss of the game just comes and stabs her right through the back of the chest and kills her. And you think it's going to be like, oh, it's something where she's got some kind of power, but no, it's just that's gone. It. And that stuff didn't happen back then.
Right.
And anyways, what I'm getting at is RPGs really shaped me, probably more than anything, because of the stories.
Yeah.
Backing up probably a year from Final Fantasy VII, Super Mario 64. That completely changed everything. Me and Steven have talked to you about this before, our Uncle Steven. Remember going into like Target and Walmart where you can play the games. I think they still did that up till a couple of years ago, didn't they? Walmart, you could walk in and play the games.
Yeah.
So everything's been side-scrollers for as long as we've been alive. And then one day you walk in, and there's Mario, and he can run in a circle, and he can swim, and he can jump into paintings, and it blew my mind that you could do 3D graphics.
Yeah.
You look at it now, it's terrible. But back then, you would never think that was possible until you saw it.
Right.
And that's the second time. The first time was Mega Man X. I begged my mom and dad for a Nintendo 64. And I didn't care if I got any other games, but I wanted Mario.
Yeah.
And I played Mario a lot. But sure.
It's your wife's favorite game.
Yes, it is. My wife still plays it yearly. She does not play any other games except for Mario 64, Mario Galaxy 2, Mario 3D World, and Mario Odyssey. And that's what she plays.
She's good at them, too.
Yeah, she's legit good. We went to Florida. We rented a van. We were with my parents. So we sat in the back, and there was a TV in there, and we took the 64. She 100% completed, got all 120 stars in like 5 hours and 30 minutes. Which is unreal
good,
fast.
Yeah.
Like, really good. Final Fantasy Tactics was another one. That, to me, is the most underrated game maybe ever.
I love that game.
The story could be a book or movie right now. It's about a guy named Ramza. His family is basically one of the power families in the world. And there's two, they're called them lions. There's a black lion and a white lion. And they're fighting for the crown, who's going to be king. And his family is basically the top notch right below the lions on one of the sides. Mm-hmm. And they are fighting to try and make their guy king. Well, you find out throughout the story that your brother is actually evil. He killed your dad, and he's betraying everybody on the way. And he plans at the end, he actually kills the knight, the lion that's above him, so that he can be king. But anyways, your guy's basically the entire time fighting the crowd, the current. He's trying to make everything right, whereas everyone else is trying to
get all this power.
Yeah, get the power. He's there to try and let the poor people and the average person rise up and get what they deserve, instead of they're all basically, because of the war, everyone is in poverty.
Yeah. And
everybody's dying because they're all getting sent to kill each other. But anyways, so the story itself is great, but I love the job class system. It's completely customizable. There's 26 different jobs. You can be squire, knight, chemist, a black mage, a white mage, a ninja, a monk, a samurai, a lancer. There's a ton of stuff you can be. And what I love about that is you can play the game so many different ways in so many different types of ways.
Right.
My latest playthrough, the archer is the second weakest class in the game, behind the original squire where it's just a knife. And I beat the entire game with 5 archers. I just shot arrows at everybody. They were sending lightning bolts and dragons. And I just was shooting them with bows and arrows. But I love the tactical side of things.
And that's where I'm mad at myself that I don't like those games as much, because I think that game's brilliant.
Well, what we should do is you should come over, you play it, and I'll just read everybody's voices so you don't have to read. I would do it. I like it that much that I would do it. Another role-playing game. Or not role-playing, excuse me, strategy game.
Oh, God.
StarCraft. That's the first game that I was in complete control over.
Yeah.
Every game up to that point that I'd played is, here's your character, go to the end objective. And there's a set events that's going to happen, and you just got to guide them through those events. StarCraft, you got online, you played against other people, you built your army how you wanted to. Out of 3 separate races, you had your own strategy. You could play defense, you could go try and attack them early. You can build an army with 200 little guys or 5 humongous guys, however you wanted to do it. And there was so much control and customization that you never had up until that point.
You said that was the game where, like, you started coming to my house when I played Modern Warfare 2, and that's all I was doing. That's the game where I would come to your house, and that would be all you were doing. We would all be downstairs watching TV, and you were at the computer.
Yeah. Not paying attention to any of it. You said it about, Modern Warfare 2, about how that made you competitive. All the other games I played, I got good at them because I like to get good at them, but StarCraft was that one for me.
Yeah.
As far as I wanted to beat everyone all the time. I wanted to be better than everybody. And that game's so good, too, just to watch.
Oh, yeah.
My dad hates watching games. Hates it. But I said he would watch the Mega Man, but that was more because at the time we didn't have a lot of money and we had one TV, so he sat there and watched it. But when I played that, he would stop what he was doing, sit down in a chair right next to me or behind me, and just watch me play 4 or 5 rounds for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And if you know my dad, that's something he doesn't do.
Right.
But it's that good and that entertaining, and there's so many different things you can do. The Terran race, which is the humans, have guys that have flamethrowers that will counter the alien Zerg. They're Zerglings, but if you do Hydralisk, they have more range than the fire bats. So you get Marines from the Terran, and there's so many things that go into it. It's just great.
Now, do you like the original more than the second?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I like the second one more as far as it's more appealing because the graphics, there's upgrades. One thing I hated about the original is whenever you click on the command center and you get your probe or SCV, they automatically go to the minerals or the gas. You have to individually send each one every single time. And if you try and click on the mineral, he'll go stand right in front of it, but he won't do anything with it. So that was the biggest upgrade. But as far as just overall, it was a lot more close between the races.
Right.
Whereas there's extreme advantages in the second one if you get the right pieces. There was no advantages in the first one. Everything had a counter to everything in the first one. This is going off the wall real quick with these next two. Doki Literature Club.
Brand new game.
Awesome. It's a dating sim. You think it's a dating sim until you fire it up, and for 4 hours you think it's a dating sim, actually. Your only hint that it's not is at the very beginning. It says that this game may be disturbing for some individuals.
Yeah.
And that's your only hint. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to know what happened, because this is kind of a newer game, so you may want to skip ahead 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
Halfway through the game, you think it's just a dating sim, and your best friend admits that she loves you. And she said she's loved you forever. She's gotten more and more depressed over the last few days. She admits that she's always had depression, but now it's building because you're flirting with other girls, being around other girls. You can confess your love to her once she confesses, or you can say, I am your best friend, but that's all I can be, but I will always be your best friend. Regardless of what you pick, the next day you go to school with the club. It's you and 4 girls, and the leader of the group says that I thought you would walk in with Sayori, which is the girl, your best friend. And you say, no, I thought I'd walk in myself. And she says, well, it's kind of weird. She's usually here by this time, blah, blah, blah. Well, you read, it's a literature club, obviously. Right. The name of the game is Doki Doki Literature Club. So you read poems, and they all are normal throughout the first part of the game. It'll be things like, oh, I went to the beach, I love the beach, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Well, everybody else's poem is the same from the day before. And her poem has changed to, it just says, get out of my head, get out of my head, get out of my head, get out of my head until I do something that's bad, get out of my head,
right.
Blah, blah, blah.
Dark stuff.
Dark stuff. You go to her house, you open the door, and she's hanging from a rope because she killed herself. And the game starts over from the very beginning. And it starts repairing itself. It tries to act like she never existed. It starts out and it says, I went to school like any other day. I'm waiting for my neighborhood friend. And then it glitches instead of her name. And then it keeps saying how you're going to go to school with her, but she hasn't come out. And then all of a sudden, the game glitches and it starts over again. And it says, I'm walking to school by myself like I always have. And it deletes her from the game completely, like she never existed. And from there, everything goes haywire. Basically what it all boils down to at the end, again, spoiler, if you haven't left yet, the leader of the club becomes self-aware that she's in the game. And she wants you to fall in love with her. So she starts doing things to the other girls to glitch them out so you'll hate them. And she preys on their fears. Like, the one girl was depressed. Well, she turns up her depression to 100. One girl self-harms. Well, she starts becoming real obsessive and self-harming.
Yeah.
And it does stuff like that. And I like this game for two reasons. One reason is I think it's the most creative game I've ever seen. And it's not close. As far as just, he throws you for a loop.
And he's the only guy that made it, right?
Yes. This is his first full-length game, too, that he's ever done. And he is one self-congratulatory son of a bitch. Because there is a part in the game, the first part kind of repeats itself in the second part, but it writes Sayori out of it.
Right.
Well, it says early on in the game, one of the girls that deals with obsession says, what's your favorite kind of book? I love fantasy, where the writer will take your lack of imagination and throw you for a complete loop. And right after she hangs herself, about 5 minutes later, it plays that same text again. And you have to look into a YouTube video on it. I don't have another hour to talk about it, but I could.
He could.
But the thing that it gets to me about is I have OCD, and I don't think you even know this, but I have anxiety pretty bad. Like, there's days, I'm good for the most part. I don't mean to bring everything down, but
right.
There's been times where I say I'm not going to do something, and it's because I just don't feel like doing it. And it isn't like I don't want to do it. It's like I just don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to get all mushy, but it is what it is. And there's so many subtle hints in their poems that she's dealing with depression, that she's dealing with obsession, she's dealing with this, that, or the other. And it affected me for once I knew the whole story, because if you don't know the story, go watch it on YouTube, and then if you replay that game, there's just so many hints.
Yeah.
And it affected me for 3 or 4 days where I was upset. Legit sad and upset over it.
Yeah.
But the fact that a game can make me be upset for 3 or 4 days,
it's impressive.
I mean, it did its job.
Yeah, for sure.
And another thing, too, is Game Grumps actually Dan said this after he played it, and I completely agree with him. They took a break from the session after Sayori killed herself. They came back the next day and recorded the rest of it. He said, the way you know it's done its job is I thought about the game here and there, but that was it. And then when I went to bed, it's all I could think about. And the first thing I thought of when I woke up was Sayori hanging herself. And that's a good sign that you did the right thing with horror. It's so good. I'm not going to go anymore because I could keep going on and on, but you got to check that out. Like you said about which game was it? Super Metroid. I don't think it's the best game by far on this list. But if I was telling you to check one out, that's what I would tell you to check out. Because it's that impactful to me.
All right.
Last, before I go to my favorite, taking a full 360 here, Harvest Moon 64.
Wait.
Keep it going. I think the reason that I put this on there is because it taught me. Now, Doki Doki Literature Club, I kind of knew what was going on before I started. I didn't know all of it, but I knew that there was a dark side to it, and it was coming, but I didn't know how dark.
Right.
Harvest Moon 64, I was just like, game about farming. All right. And I always thought it was so stupid that people played games like this, or puzzle games, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
Games that aren't mainstream, that weren't Mario, Zelda, Metroid. So I was Don't know why. I have no idea why I got it. But I got it, and it taught me to never judge any game by its cover.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to try different things. It's easily in my top 25, probably 20 of all time.
Now, this is the 64 version.
64 version.
Because I love it, too. And we tried the Super Nintendo version, not near as good. Not
it's
even
okay,
close.
but it's not 64.
It is. Sorry.
I got you. Go on. You go on.
No,
I've been talking for a long
I want
time.
you to say it. I want you to say it because I was gonna say what you're gonna say. I think
Potentially, maybe.
maybe.
I got so wrapped up in that game. I had Saturday school. I was a bad kid. 8th grade. Got in trouble. Had Saturday school. Completely off subject. For just 1 second, I saw somebody whack off in Saturday school.
Okay.
But in that same Saturday school, that gets burned into your mind, man. You can't unsee some things.
You definitely can't.
But I got so wrapped up into that game that I memorized just from playing it. This was after 2 or 3 months of playing it. There's different crops you can plant for spring, summer, fall, and winter. Till you get a greenhouse in the winter, and then you can do whatever at any time. It gets exciting. I know you guys just can't believe it. I legitimately remembered how much each product cost, how many days it took to grow it, and how much you sold each individual unit for. And I made a 3-page report about how much tomatoes would be per year, how much corn would be, how much onions would be. I had it broke down to I can make this much per week, this much per year. This is going to be the best crop to do. If I make this combination, I can continually make more money than I need. And I've never done that with the game ever before or since. That I knew what I was going to do like I was an actual freaking farmer. Like I might as well have been doing my own crops. That's how deep I went into it.
It's so weird because, like, it is one of the most addicting games. Because, like, just not too long ago when I played it, I'm not good at it like David is, but, like, it's so fun. I was like, you would have to, like, the day would end and you'd be like, crap. And then you'd wake up the next day and you're like, I gotta go do all these things. I didn't get this
done.
And, like, you can just play for hours and hours and just be like, I have to get all this done.
And the problem is, not the problem, the good thing is, the days are only 10 minutes long. Mm. And that's what keeps you wanting to play. You're like, I didn't get this done. I got to go do it again. I'll play one more day. But you never, ever play one more day.
Yeah.
And another big part is you could woo girls. There were 6 different girls you could marry. And that was half the fun. I was like, I'm making all these bitches fall in love with me.
And what's weird about, like, Harvest Moon is when Facebook first got big, everyone was like, why are all these people playing Farmville, Farmtown, all this trash? And I was like, I know exactly why. Yeah. And it's awesome.
I can tell you exactly why. And it's not near as good as Harvest Moon.
Oh, not even close.
And none of the Harvest Moons that have come after have been near as good. I've played almost all of them. So I can't 100% say that, but out of the ones I've played, none of them have been. Yeah. I played the PlayStation 2 one, the GameCube, the 3DS. I think that's all I've played.
There's a lot of them now.
And they're not bad. Yeah. They're not bad by any means, but they're not that.
I think there's over 30 of them.
I believe that.
I played one on the 3DS. I think
it was okay.
I think it's a different one. I think there's 3 different ones on the 3DS. And I know which one you had and I don't think it's the same. And it was all right, but yeah, there's not been one like 64.
All right, you ready?
We're going to end this off with our top 2 games. Or our favorite each.
You want to go first or you want me to?
I'll go first. I haven't talked in a while. Now, thinking about my list and all the games I enjoy, I don't know if this is my favorite game of all time, but it's very unique. It has a lot of things I love, and just this game overall it puts me in a happy spot, like to play it, and like that's what gaming's all about. It makes you happy. It's a hobby. That's what any hobby's about. And like playing this game, thinking about this game, watching it, just puts me in a happier spot. And that's the first Pikmin for the GameCube. That's a weird game to say. Like, I don't even know if it's my favorite. I know it's not the best game that I like a lot, but it's just so fun. It's something you're in control of.
Yeah.
So that point of it's really fun. It's a real-time strategy, and like just everything about it. Like I've always liked animals, and you get to control like this army of weird little creatures. Like it's so cool to me, and like the progression system in it is awesome. The battling's fun, like finding everything, because what I like in a game is an adventure. Like, I like to go... Like, I want to be transported into a different world. Because I don't want to think about real life. Real life sucks. The older you get...
That's the whole reason you play? Or half the reason you play games.
Oh, yeah. The more you get into... Like, the older you get, the more it sucks. Like, I'd never thought I would hate something as much as calling, like, an insurance company. I'd rather cry than calling my insurance company.
Yeah.
But, like, I want to be transported into another world. And when I play Pikmin, it does that. Because I feel like I'm on an adventure to find this stuff. And that's every single Pikmin. Like, I think Pikmin 1's my favorite to play. But, like, Pikmin 2 is a huge game. And you go all over the place. Pikmin 3 is beautiful. And, like, it has even more of a story. So, I don't know. Those games just get to me in my heart. And I just really enjoy them.
There doesn't have to be a reason for it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just something I love.
Yeah. Like... my Doki Doki Literature Club.
Yeah.
There's no reason that should be one of my favorites, but it is.
But it is. I'm excited for your favorite game because I almost put it on my list.
Before I get to it, this is really stupid, but you said adulting, you hate insurance company to call them.
Hate it.
I don't know why, but my number one pet peeve of being an adult is getting my oil changed.
Really?
Every time I gotta get my oil changed, I'm like, with this shit again. I gotta go spend $30 for somebody to unscrew something under my car and let liquid drain out of it.
Yeah.
It infuriates
That's annoying.
me. And then they're all closed, except for, like, the only time I can go is on Saturday, so it's like I gotta go on my day off to go have you basically take my money to pour liquid out of my car.
Yeah.
It makes me so mad. Anyways, my number one all time, and as much as I love Mega Man X as my second favorite game, it really is a mile ahead of it to me, is Chrono Trigger. I think it's the greatest game of all time, outside of it being my favorite game. I think it's also the greatest. We kind of talked about it with Super Metroid.
It's perfect.
Tell me what's wrong with Chrono Trigger.
Nothing.
You can't, because there's nothing wrong with it.
And that's a huge testament coming from me talking about RPGs. There was none in my list. Literally none.
Yeah.
But I almost put Chrono Trigger on because it's the only RPG I've ever beaten, and I've probably beaten it 15 times. I love it that much.
Okay. The things... No, I don't mean K. I'm just going to get my thoughts in order.
I know.
Because I'm going to try this as fast as I can, because I like DDLC, but this even more, I could go on forever.
Right.
Characters, A+. Got a silent protagonist. I guess I'll give it an A, because I wish he talked.
Yeah.
But his princess girlfriend Marley, awesome. His friend, I can never say the word right. Lucia?
I say Lucia.
I say Lucia, but I think that's wrong.
It might be.
Awesome. The robot, but he's still a cool, interesting character.
Yeah.
I just don't like the design that much.
Glenn.
Cave Woman, Ayla,
she's cool.
She's cool.
Hot.
You're telling
God,
me.
if you want to see a hot 16-bit character, 32-bit, 16-bit,
32.
go look at Ayla.
No, 16. 16-bit.
Go look at Ayla.
Glenn.
Awesome.
It's a frog.
With a sword.
It's a knight that got turned into a frog, and he's awesome.
He's so cool.
And he speaks in medieval times. It's awesome.
Are you gonna say?
And then Magus.
Yeah.
What other
he's
game?
One of the coolest ones.
He is who you think is the main boss for half the game, until you literally are fighting him, and you find out that he was trying to kill the boss of the game. Not only that, but he's the one that turned Glenn into a frog. And then you go a couple hours later into the game, you realize that you're in the past, because you can time travel. Usually I'm not into that, but they use it so well.
Perfectly.
That you find Magus as a kid. His name is Janus. That's why he goes by Magus, is he wants to forget that life. Because he tries to save his sister, gets sucked into a different time period because of Lavos, who is the real end boss. And later up, you can team up with the guy that you thought was the freaking end boss of the game to be on your team, to kill the end boss of the actual game.
Yeah.
Blows my mind, still.
Craziest story.
And, again, I was going to say that without context to Magus, but the time travel, I usually hate time travel, it's perfect.
It's so good.
Everything you do affects something else in a different time period, and the story flows perfect.
And that's something I was going to mention, is everything has a purpose. You can move something a certain way in one world, and you'll get a different ending to the game.
Yeah.
There's 13 endings?
In the DS, there's even more. I think there's 15 or 16, but the original had 13 endings.
13 endings for a game back then is
I don't think
crazy.
there was any other game with more than 2 back then.
Yeah.
I don't know that there was one with 2, and they had 13.
It was because Square Enix, like, they put a dream team together to make this game. And, like, I've watched so much history about this because they literally took two of the best teams, put them together. The maker
of Dragon Quest and Dragon Ball Z, and put them with the guys that made Final Fantasy.
Yeah. And they put them together. And they, literally all of them, like, if you talk to, or most of them that I interviewed, have said that's their favorite project they've worked on. Because it was like a love child.
Yeah.
And like, it's so perfect.
Actually, I believe there's only 9 endings now that I say that. I think the DS has the
13.
But right. Still.
9 endings.
I know it has at least 7, and I used to know exactly. I haven't played it in a year, but that's crazy. I mean, even for now, that's kind of crazy. Back then, it was unheard of.
Some of them were just like tiny little things, but a lot of them were like big differences in the game, and that's awesome. More
things I love about it. The main character can die.
Yeah.
And he can stay dead. The guy you control the entire game can die, and that's the end of the game. You fight the boss and it's over.
Yeah.
That's actually how it's intended to be played. Actually getting the main character back is considered a side quest, extra path.
All right.
Which brings me to what else I was going to say. It had DLC before DLC was a thing.
All right.
The game ended, and you were about halfway done.
Yeah.
You still had a good 5-6 hours. Which brings me to my next point. It's an RPG with tons of shit in it, and it's a 20-something hour game.
Yeah.
You would think, if I didn't say that, it's an RPG, it's one of the greatest of all time, you would guarantee, I would bet that you would say at least 40, 50 hours.
Yeah.
Even if you played it. And that's, to me, a sign of a good game, is you thought you spent all this time, but you're done, and it's 20 hours.
Yeah.
Because you just fly through it, because it's awesome. It's just so good. There's so many things. The music.
That's what I was about to mention. One of my favorite parts is I was at work the other day, and I just heard this certain, like, little chorus, and it just reminded me, and I just went, dun 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 dun.
It's so good.
Dun, dun, dun. Like, you can sing that all day.
And it's about 7 or 8 different songs.
Oh yeah.
That are just top notch.
Yeah, it's that's another game where I play it, especially the beginning at the fair, where I'm just like, I'm happy.
Yeah,
that I'm playing that game.
Even the mini games at the very beginning of the game can affect things.
Yeah,
it decides your character. Like, you get judged 3 hours into the game, whether you're guilty or not guilty for stealing a princess, and you just messing around at the fair affects whether they think that. You can either eat some guy's chicken that you don't even know it's his chicken at the time to refill your health, but if you do, he thinks you stole that chicken and says that you're guilty.
Yeah.
If you try and run away, the princess wants candy. If you run, because it takes about 30 seconds, if you try and run from it, they say that you were trying to get away from her, or something to that effect. And it's just so many things, little tiny details. Like you said, you move a rock one way or the other, and it affects something in the future or past. It's just so good.
That is, by definition, like a perfect game. No one can find faults in it.
It introduced New Game Plus.
Yeah.
Where you finish the game and you keep all your stats you had.
Yep.
So good.
I almost put it on my list, and that, like I said, that speaks to how good it is I don't like those types of games. Not that I don't like them, but I just can't play them that much.
Yeah.
But that game I can play all the time.
Also, an underrated thing about it is the one thing I can get arguments with people with RPGs, especially turn-based RPGs. One, this isn't all the way turn-based. It's live. It's constantly moving. But there's too many things. There's attack, there's magic, and there's 50 spells. There's 500 different techniques for each person. There's a billion items. In Chrono Trigger, there's attack, there's tech, and there's item. And the tech, there's only about 8 per person, and then you can play dual and triple techs depending on your team. So you can
do that's one of the coolest parts.
Yeah.
Seeing the combos of attacks people can make, like, just simple ones too, like Lucia's and Chrono's fire sword where he just spins in circle. I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
And one last thing, and I'll shut up about it. It's the only game, even out of all the RPGs I love, that I've played it so many times, not because I just wanted to play it, which I did, but I would purposely use different combination of characters in every single scenario in the game, because I want to see how they interact. Each one of them say different set things, depending on who's in your party. Magus is the one that turned Glenn into the frog, if I hadn't said that.
Yeah.
They interact so differently. You know what I mean? There's constant conflict. Marley's always trying to cheer up Chrono. Lucia repaired Robo, so they always are talking about that kind of. It's so good.
And
I don't know what else I can say other than it's the perfect game.
What's really weird is, like, if you look up top games of all time, it's always on a good list in a top 5.
Yeah.
Or a top 10.
Yeah.
And I still think it's one of the most underrated games of all time.
Oh, I do too, because not enough people have played it.
Yeah, not enough people know about it, because growing up, I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for you and Steven.
That was one thing. I'm glad you just said that, because I got... This is going to sound awful now that I say it in my head, but our grandma and grandpa, mama and pawpaw, their house got flooded. There was a big flood in Louisville in the 95, 96.
Was not
you weren't
alive.
born. It was right when Chrono Trigger came out. 95 is when it came out. It was either late 95 or early 96 is when this flood happened.
Right.
It was so bad that we had to go out in canoes and get them out of their house and literally swim them out. Anyways, Steven, being the genius that he is, made sure that he got Chrono Trigger and a Super Nintendo. And he packed it and brought it over. I had no idea what it was. And he brought it over, and it was the best moment of my life. He brought that over, and I played it when he wasn't there. Because
right.
if he was there, he was playing it. And I just loved it. I loved every minute of it. I remember... It's the only game that I can think of that he had the strategy guide for it, and I read that bitch cover to cover
back
several times, like just to look at the pictures and the artwork. And
yeah, it's a beautiful game too. If we didn't mention that,
it really is. I'll shut up about it because this could go on for another 2.5 hours
really
if I keep talking about Chrono Trigger and DDLC.
I was about to say before Chrono, that was the game you talked about the most.
Yeah.
But
ain't that weird?
Yeah, it's a very big difference.
It's so good.
Well,
I
was fully thinking that'd be about 45 minutes.
How long are we going?
1:16.
This won't be as long. Or from here on out, the episodes probably won't be as long.
Yeah, because this was more like we had a lot to get through in a little amount of time. But what we're thinking is like a lot of the topics will be like, what makes Nintendo, like, difference between Nintendo and Sony? Like, what makes them different?
And there will be a lot of going back and forth, too.
Right.
This was more just your experience, my experience,
and we commented.
So, it'll be a lot more give and take and certain straight subjects. It won't be 50 different games we're going to talk about.
Why is Super Mario 64 so revolutionary? What's better, A Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time? A Link to the Past.
Of course.
All right.
We covered that.
That was a mini podcast in itself.
Episode 2. Link to the Past is better than Ocarina.
Yeah. So, that's it. That's our first podcast.
I hope you all liked it. It was fun.
Good. I had a lot of fun. It was good. It taught me a lot about us
that
I already knew.
I learned about stuff about you, though. I mean, I knew those games, but I got to see deeper into it.
Yeah. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. We're hoping we're going to start doing this weekly. Hopefully. We're going to try. We just got to figure out a few things, technical side about it. And honestly, it'll probably be pretty easy because we just thought it was going to be like 45 minutes and we just talked an hour and 20 about it. So I hope you guys liked it. I hope whoever stayed to the end, thank you. Thanks for being here. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you guys have any ideas about what you want us to talk about, we can talk about
anything.
Why are peacocks the color they are? And we could get into a 30-minute conversation.
We really could. So, yeah, if you have any ideas for something you want to hear us talk about, and one thing we really want to do, I want to do, I don't know if I've mentioned it to you, I want to do like a Q&A. Like, if any of y'all have questions, put them down there and we'll answer them. Yeah. Just in like a podcast type of form. So thanks for joining us. We had a lot of fun. We'll hopefully be releasing another one pretty soon after this one, so keep your eye on that. And if you like the podcast, hey, share it with someone you know. You can just listen to it on the car. That's what I do.
Comment, subscribe,
send us money.
Yes.
All right.
Also do that.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. That was podcast episode number 1.
I love you. We love you. Good night, America.
Good night.